Light. It is the most important thing in photography, and quite interesting is light gets so often misunderstood by photographers and even by really experienced ones. In this video, we will have a look at the behavior of light, we will talk about the quality of light and, importantly, how to get sure to get the best possible light for your landscape photography. Hi my friends, very nice to see you. As many of you might know, my approach to photography was over painting, but I think I tapped into the same traps as most photographers do according to light. I think I read multiple books about photography, or about landscape photography even, that the best light is around sunset and sunrise. And yeah, for multiple years I just photographed at those daytimes. A big mistake. And we will talk about later a bit more about daytimes. Light is a really important factor in landscape photography, or generally in photography. It can change the visual weights in your photographs, but it can also change the mood in our image, what we want to convey. And that's quite important, especially in landscape photography. So light is important, and this is why we need to understand the quality of light. And there are more properties which define the quality. First of all, we have the direction of the light. And let's hold this simple here. Front light means that the light comes from behind your back and goes 90 degrees towards your scene. And this leads to high saturation. So if you want to photograph Alpenglow, for instance, front light is a good choice here. This will bring the mountain to burn. It doesn't need to be exactly 90 degrees, to be honest. Also 70 or 110 degrees could also work, but 90 degrees has definitely the most effect on saturation. And the downside of front light is that the scene gets quite flat as there is no contrast. And this is because the light comes from the same direction as we look. We simply can't see shadows in that case. Front light is the type of light I use least, to be honest, but sometimes it can be an interesting choice. The opposite of front light is backlight, obviously, and we photograph towards the light in this case, and our subject is between the light source and our camera. So this type of light is quite interesting for landscape photography because you get the best possible contrasts. What is contrast? That's the difference between brightness and darkness. And we are drawn to contrast. So contrasts build visual weights actually. And backlight can also do quite cool things, by the way. It can illuminate the foliage on trees, for instance, so that they start to glow. We will talk later a bit more about behavior of light in different situations. And then we have side light. And side light is also quite interesting for landscape photography. It leads to the best possible plasticity. And this means we get the best possible 3D effect on the elements in our composition. We get depth in our photograph, and this works because when an element is illuminated from the side, we see not only the elements itself, but we also see the shadows as well. So the elements get emphasized by the shadows actually. And you know, as a photograph, it's just a thin piece of paper. Yeah, it is not three-dimensional, obviously. It is two-dimensional. And so when we want to breathe life into a photograph, yeah, we need depth. And there are a couple of more things you can do to get depth in a photograph, and I made already a video about that. I will link it up here for you so that you can watch it after this video. Okay, so now we know how the direction of the light affects the quality, but the quality of light is not only defined by its direction. We have also the elevation angle of the light source, and yeah, quite funny, by the way. I often ask this in my workshops, what is the quality of light? And guess what? 9 of 10 photographers answer the best quality is around sunset or sunrise. We all read the same books, obviously. However, fact is, the elevation angle of the sun has an effect on the quality of light. On the one hand, a high sun can't lead to side light, obviously. That's impossible. I mean, the sun is up there, and the lower the sun, the longer the distance, the light has to pass through the atmosphere. And I mentioned this already in my red sky video. The atmosphere scatters especially the blue part of the light, and this is done by the particles in our atmosphere. So the lower the sun gets, the more the light turns to orange and red, and ultimately around sunrise and sunset is another quality of light than around noon, for instance. But you can anyway get fantastic light at noon, maybe even the best light you have ever seen in your life. We'll talk about that in a minute. There is another element that defines the quality of light, and this is the harshness or the softness. That depends on how you want to turn it. You know, the smaller the light source, the more harsh the light gets. And this leads to hard shadows and high contrast. So with clear sky, we have just this little circle up in the sky, the sun obviously. I know the sun is big obviously, but as it is far away, it is just a small light source, and this leads into harsh light. And with harsh light, you get a lot of dynamic into a photograph. I mean, this is not bad at all, but the light should fit to the mood you want to convey. So if you want to have a more harmonic image instead, soft light is the better choice. And for getting soft light, we need a bigger light source, obviously. We can't change the size of the sun, of course, but what we can do is we can use a big softbox for our landscape. Clouds, obviously. The sun illuminates the clouds, and the big clouds become our light source. So with clouds between the sun and our subject, we get soft light, which can lead to a really comfortable, tranquil mood. And quite important to understand is, actually, there is not a good or bad quality of light. There exist just different qualities of light. And it really depends on the mood you want to convey, and to that, what your image should say, the story finally. Well, now we know about the quality of light, but light can do much more than that. Light has a lot of different behaviors, and as this has such a big impact to our photographs, it is really important to know about these behaviors. So let me give you some examples. I mentioned backlit foliage already, and it is really a good idea in woodland photography to get the foliage illuminated from behind. Yeah, the thing that makes woodland photography so difficult is actually the missing separation of all the elements and all the natural chaos in the forest. But when the foliage starts to glow, it gets much easier to get it isolated from the rest of the forest. And it can transform odd foliage to an area where we get even drawn to. Mist is also a good example of how light can get a big impact to a scenery. In this image here, there was mist rising as the sun rose behind the mountain, and ultimately the mist got illuminated from behind, and this leads into this nice tranquil morning mood. I think the sun set here already 5 minutes after sunrise. Yeah, it was just a small gap where the sun appeared here. And illuminated mist like that can also be used fantastically for separating layers. Now when we look here at the left hand side, we get this amazing sense of depth with the separation. We would also get separation if the cloud would not be illuminated, but the warm light even boosts this effect. Let's stay in this image. Interesting are also the contrasts here and the tonality. In the foreground, everything is in the shadow, but the part back there is totally illuminated, so we are drawn back there. And same in this image here, I was photographing in the shadow towards a bridge, and behind this bridge I got this enchanting sidelight from the left, as there were fewer trees back there. This led to this awesome contrast between shadow and light, which adds depth to this image. And it also draws the viewer's eyes back to the distance. Or let's have a look at this image here. Now, this was a vista in Croatia, and the light spots in the landscape built a quite high visual weight. It was so important to consider that in this composition. And this was at sunset, but as already mentioned, we can get the best light around noon as well. Like it was in this image here. I was vlogging in Tuscany, and I think I explained even the importance of light as the cloud shadows were rolling in what I saw was not only that there were shadows rolling in, I realized that there was a gap at the left-hand side of the shadows, and it moved towards this kind of furrow there. So it is really important to observe the light and to think about how it could change so that you can quickly build up a working composition. In this case, I got a light spot in the foreground, the bushes were still illuminated, but the furrow down there got already dunked into shadow. So we get a fantastic separation between the bushes and the midground layer on the one hand. But on the other hand, we also get a kind of 3D effect on the hill, and all that was given through a game between light and shadow. Again, this was taken around noon, but it anyway led into a photograph. Yeah, it's really strong, and I sell it on my web shop as a fine art print, and it's a quite asked print, by the way, and I also like it by myself. It is absolutely amazing. So always think about taking photographs at noon as well. I mean, it was luck to get the light exactly like that, but knowing about how you need to place the light spots in the scene helped massively for building up this composition. And some hours later, we got the sun more down, obviously, and we got the sun from the side, so we got side light from the right, what led into this image here. And again, it was just some hours later. And quite interesting here, when I was there, I was the one and only photographer there, and I think maybe 5 minutes after I took the shot, there came more than 20 other photographers. There was also a workshop given, and quite interesting. The workshop leader said to his members something like, "The best light will appear in an hour." But I was already packing because I got the best light already. And this is a thing that gets misunderstood so often, also by really experienced photographers. I mean, it is true, there was still around an hour to sunset, but the best light is always that light that fits especially to your composition. If I had waited a bit longer, you wouldn't have got this awesome plasticity here at the left-hand side with this light and shadow game. So an hour later, of course, the light had got more orange through, but on the one hand, orange would not fit to this composition, and on the other hand, I wanted to get this nice plasticity at the left-hand side of the hill. So always get sure that you choose the right quality of light for your composition. By the way, if you haven't seen this video where I took these two shots, it's really worth. It is even one of my favorite videos here on my channel, so I will link it up here for you so that you can watch it after this video. However, it is amazing what light can do, isn't it? But light can do even more. Here I was out for photographing an amazing vista scene over this lake, and there was just a thin layer of low-level clouds that simply rolled in bad weather from behind me, but at the left-hand side there suddenly opened a gap and the light ray broke through. It was absolutely amazing. It was incredible that it illuminated that meadow at the right-hand side, and this led into such a fantastic balance in this scene. So we got side light here on the mountains, but we got the light ray as an important character for our composition as well. Same in this image here, there was just a thin layer of clouds and a lot of wind, and this helped me here to get a little gap. And this light ray here, what is the hero of this composition actually. And here the middle back there got also illuminated, and the viewer's eyes get drawn to light spots like that. I really love this image. I mentioned alpenglow already when you use front light, but there is another use case for front light. Rainbows. And this image here was taken around sunset. It was raining, the rain moved from behind my camera position to the distance. And as there was a gap behind my camera position, we got the light shining over these hills, and the raindrops in the air built this enchanting rainbow. Amazing what light is able to do, isn't it? I mentioned light spots already, but light spots can do much more. But before I will tell you more here, my friends, if you like this video, please consider to give me a thumb up. It helps me, it helps the algorithm, and it helps also other photographers out there to find this video better on YouTube. Thank you therefore. Well, when you get gaps in the clouds, it could happen that you get a character isolated from the rest of the landscape. I was out for photographing something totally different, and suddenly the light broke through. I just grabbed my camera and took this shot here freehand, and this was a mix of side light and front light actually, which illuminated this exposed peak here. Even the cloud got illuminated up there. I really like this. light can also be used to colorize elements in our composition. In this winter scene here, I got the low orange sun reflected on the snow, but also the clouds up there started to glow in this golden light. But we don't need necessarily direct sunlight. This is also one of these things that get misunderstood so often. As I was photographing unharvested, I stayed there for a while for waiting for the fog. I think, more hours. And there were so many people passing as I took the photograph straight from a trail, from a hiking trail. And I think I heard 15, if not 20 times hikers saying to me something like, it's so sad that there is no light, or so sad that the sun is not there. There was light, of course, because otherwise the image would be totally black. But for a melancholic scene like that, the story of this broken tree back there, I didn't want to get direct sunlight. Direct sunlight has a lot of energy, and for some images it is better not to get all too much energy in. Now, this tree here is a good example. I like this image, but around half an hour before I took another one without direct sunlight. And I have to say, I like this one even more. And in this image here, I didn't use direct sunlight as well. It is a foggy scene and it conveys this foggy mood. A direct sunlight would look strange here. So it is really so important that the light supports the story and the mood you want to convey. Really, don't forget that your image should say something. In this image here, for instance, I needed this bittersweet mood of drama at the left-hand side with the red sky and salvation at the right-hand side with this reflection of the cold clouds straight over the reeds. It is really important where in your composition the light affects which components in which way. So in this image here, for instance, the sun set exactly in the gap of a mountain left beside the scene. This led to this fantastic cone of light that illuminated exactly these two huts up there. So as you can see, light does not just convey mood and evoke emotions, what is also a quite important point, but it can also get a really important component for your compositions itself. In this image here, I used scattered light. Usually we want to get rid of scattered light. This is why we use a lens hood when we photograph towards the sun, for instance. In this case, I used this effect for getting this nice softness on the left-hand side. And this leads into a really fantastic photograph. And also blue or can offer fantastic light. We also don't have direct sunlight here, but at the side where the sun comes up, or also where it sets, there appears an orange stripe. And this is not to exchange with red sky, by the way. For red sky, we need clouds that get illuminated, but for the orange stripe, we don't want to have clouds. This is a different weather phenomenon, actually. So in this image here, I used this orange stripe for getting very soft side light from the left, and this led into this harmonic and tranquil mood. And on the other side of the orange stripe, you get a pink stripe. And this is the shadow of our planet, by the way. This could also lead in a really fantastic, and even into a surreal light situation. You can get out really some fantastic photographs. And the interaction of light with steaming water can also be nice. In this image here, the steam was totally in the shadow. This works here in this composition as the emphasis goes to the steam itself and the landscape interacting with the peering mountain face in the distance. But in this image here, I photographed in a quite narrow gorge. The water was quite hot as it was water from a volcano. I think it had around 30 degrees or even more, something like that. And the steaming water started to glow here in the composition. What leads here really nicely to this mood and adds depth to the image as well. I mentioned the golden clouds already, when golden sunlight illuminates the clouds, but also red light after sunset or before sunrise can illuminate the clouds, and this can dunk the landscape deeply into reds. So red sky is really a fantastic weather phenomenon for getting us fantastic photographs. Here another image that got taken around noon. In an Austrian winter, the sun is generally much lower than in summer, so you can get also scenes like this here at lunchtime. The light did something really awesome here for me. First of all, the peaks are illuminated nicely. But I got also this parasailer in front of the shadow, and the parasailer itself got illuminated nicely. And this image wouldn't work without this accentuation. It would work without the parasailer, but the parasailer needed to be illuminated from this nice side light. It was luck to get the parasailer exactly at that position, but it was not luck to get the light spots in this image here. I put really a lot of planning effort into this image, and I knew that there was a good chance to get light spots here. I think it was also around noon, by the way. So I think we can start to forget about all this fairy tale of best light is just around sunset or sunrise. You can get a warm color temperature and a low light source through, but other daytimes can offer you phenomenal light situations. Important to understand is that light gets influenced by the weather. So planning the weather is the most important thing for predicting the sort of light you will get. And if you shouldn't know how to predict weather, watch this video here. It will really help you. My friends, I hope you liked this video. If yes, please give me a thumb up. And thank you so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.
I'm the landscape you need to see. You are the artist I'll never be.